My goal in this video is to change your life, to change somebody's life in every video that I make. That is my intention. That's the intention that I set right now in the beginning of this video, that I'm going to change somebody's life, and that person might be you. And that's why I'm making this video. I want to tell you about states of consciousness and acting under compulsion, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about this. And I'm going to give you an example of an experience within my own life to where I experienced this, to where it really shed some light on this. But let me talk about acting under compulsion and states of consciousness. Okay, so when you decide, say if you were to decide right now during this video that you wanted to be somebody different, that you wanted to have new things within your life, you wanted to have financial freedom, you wanted to be able to travel the world, you wanted to be able to buy your dream car, you wanted to be able to buy your dream house, you wanted to do all of these things right now. So then you would ask yourself a question. So what would I be doing? Where would I be living? What car would I be driving? And if I didn't have any issues in my life right now and I was this new person, how would I feel? And what would I be doing differently than what I'm doing now? And then you start mentally rehearsing these things in your mind. You start asking, first you ask yourself the question, then you get really specific with this. Like, what would be different within your life right now? What would you be doing? Like, where would you be living? And then you start visualizing yourself living there. And you start visualizing yourself doing those things, all right? And you start doing this 5-10 times a day. You really start contemplating this, visualizing it, affirming, I am now this person that lives in this house. You start scripting it, you start writing it down. You're very grateful and appreciative, and you keep putting yourself into this state until it becomes natural to you, until you impress that into the subconscious mind. And as the subconscious mind starts to really believe that you are now this new version of yourself, because you keep imagining it, you keep imagining it, you keep imagining it. And sometimes it can happen just one time, okay? Just imagining it one time, it can happen. But as soon as the subconscious mind feels you to be this new person, it then downloads a new program within your brain. You are now in a new state of consciousness that is aligned and congruent with the version of yourself that you impress the subconscious mind with, and you're going to act differently. You're going to be under compulsion, under that new state of consciousness, to do whatever you need to do to get your desires met, to meet you to where you had it visualized yourself being. You're going to do everything, and everything's going to act under compulsion. It's going to meet you there. It's going to be attracted to you, and you're also going to be doing things that are congruent with that state. And sometimes you won't even know what state you're in, because really you can't act outside of your state of consciousness, so you can't really see everything that's happening. And I'm going to give you an example on that. Back before, or when I first started using the law of assumption, I was kind of, back when my grandfather first introduced it, I was kind of in and out of it. I wasn't really using it the way that I use it now. But I remember that I went into a state of consciousness. Unconsciously, I went into this state where I was eating too much food, and I was eating unhealthy food. I was drinking alcohol. I had a lot of vices. I didn't have good habits. And I was just in this state of consciousness where I became overweight. I was chubby. And I remember that I didn't even know that I had this issue within that state of consciousness, because I was acting under compulsion from that state of consciousness, eating pizza, eating fast food, drinking every day, doing all the things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I lost control of my physique, because I had a really good physique before that. But then I fell into a new state, and then I became overweight. And I didn't even realize it until I broke free from that, where I started seeing myself having the body that I desired to have, started feeling myself being that new person, and started visualizing myself and people saying, man, you really look good. You really have a great body. And I started seeing other people's, reacting to me in visualizations and affirmations, feeling myself in this state. And what happened was I impressed the subconscious mind with myself having a new physique, okay? Being very, very, a decent physique, okay? Nothing crazy, but healthy, okay? And then looking back and then what happened after that is I started eating better. I started exercising more. I started eliminating things from my life in that new state, acting under compulsion, and started micromanaging certain things in my life, to where now I would do I would fast in the mornings and things like that, and I would drink more water, and I would get away from the pizzas and the fast food. And before I knew it, I was in shape again, okay? And when that happened, I looked, this is what happened. This is one of the things that happened, excuse me. This is one of the things that happened to me, where I realized about states of consciousness and acting under compulsion, because I saw pictures of myself when I was in that state. I was overweight, and I had, you see a little bit of fat here under my chin, and I had, like a t-shirt on, and I just didn't look, I looked like hell, it was not good, unhealthy. And I was looking at myself, I cannot even believe that that's the person that I was 6 months ago. Like, who was that? I don't even remember who that person was, because I was in a different state of consciousness, entirely different state of consciousness when I was doing those things. And I got out of that state of consciousness by assuming myself to be somebody new, by assuming myself to the law of assumption, assuming myself to be something different, and being in shape and being healthy, and seeing and feeling and experiencing people telling me that I'm healthy, and then impressing the subconscious mind with that. And then what had happened? I acted under compulsion to now change everything, but I didn't even know that I was doing it. It was a different being. I was acting naturally in that state of consciousness where I started eliminating certain things from my life, started doing things differently. But I don't really remember doing all that. I just did it. It was automatic in that state of consciousness. You cannot act outside of your state of consciousness. And that's what Neville Goddard talks about, free will. Okay, free will. You don't have free will to change circumstances and conditions within the simulation. You only have free will to change your states of consciousness and what you're assuming. And that's ultimately what changes the simulation, though. Okay? And it took me so long to figure this out and experiencing all this stuff, okay? But why I tell you all this is because right now you're in a state of consciousness. But at any time, you can get out of that state of consciousness and you'll do different things. So if you see other people that are successful and you're like, they're just lucky. They're just doing everything right. They're just doing this, they're doing that. And I can't do that. They just got lucky, or they had something fall in their lap, or they had an inheritance, or they did this, they did that. And you're thinking those things. That's the state of consciousness they're in. And you can also enter that state of consciousness, and other people can say that about you. You can find success right now by assuming yourself to be somebody new, and you will enter, by visualizing, by affirming, by scripting, you will enter a new state of consciousness where you'll be acting under compulsion and doing different things automatically that are going to create that world for you. And I want to really emphasize the power, excuse me, the power of this. You have this power within you, and you can create anything that you want within your reality because you have free will to control your states of consciousness. And what will happen when you do this, you're going to look back on the person that you are now, that if you're struggling with debt or anything that's happening in your reality that you don't like right now, you're not going to have those issues. And when you look back on the person that you were 6 months ago, 6 months from now, you're going to look back on the person you are now. You're not even going to recognize that person. You're not even going to know who that person is. You're going to be disgusted by that person, potentially. And that's what I had experienced already. And every time I change states of consciousness, I look back at myself, even a year ago, I look back at myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have been doing this better, that better. What was I even doing? I can't believe I was even doing that. A lot of times I constantly shift into new states so quickly that I look back all the time. And that's how I know that I've shifted states of consciousness, because I look back at myself, I'm not the same person that I was 6 months or a year ago. From visualizations, from creating a new concept of myself by changing my inner dialogue. And I want everybody to experience this. But I wanted to explain this because I feel like this is something really important that can change many people's lives with this understanding, because that's what it did for me. Acting under compulsion, creating new states of consciousness is going to do this for you. I'm just enjoying the Florida weather here on my island in my backyard. I don't see the little gator. Little Neville's not back here. He's probably, in the winter, I think alligators go down underneath and they slow their heart rate down to 5 beats per minute. Try to preserve their energy. But I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.